The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply. USAA.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undefeated weed whacker guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing basketball.
Here's our hosts, Steve Collins, and Bill Flitter.
Hello, coaches. Welcome to another episode of Coaching Youth Hoops. We have a special guest today. John is from a local high school. He's a local high school girls coach. He's coming back for his second episode. And if you missed the first one, go back. He was talking about culture and how to establish culture, not only at high school level, but also at the grade school level, and how you can work with coaches, your local high school, to help you establish culture in your particular team at the grade school level. John shared a lot of his knowledge, but if you missed that first one, John, like I said, John is a local to me, high school coach, Division I in the state of California, one of the top 10 programs in the state. John has numerous undefeated seasons, has been coaching there for 6 years. Took a losing program and turned it around based on his culture. But today we are going to talk about something completely different, and that is AAU. And there's lots of topics we could dive into, and we'll see where this one goes today. John, thank you again for coming back. Appreciate you and the time that you're taking to share with all the youth coaches around the world. So, John, welcome.
Thank you so much. And you had to bring me back for the AAU discussion, right?
I did. In our previous conversations, when I touched upon it, and then I heard your reaction, I'm like, oh, perfect. I got to bring John back on. We got to talk about this. So John, I'm going to leave this open-ended.
Good.
And we'll see where this conversation goes. First off, maybe can you just quickly explain what AAU is? And because that's it's big in the United States. We have listeners from all around the world: Germany, Australia, the UK, etc. So they may not be quite familiar with AAU.
Yeah. So AAU originally was created as a kind of second step or an additional step to organize basketball through schools and high schools and middle schools and even elementary schools. It was created originally for the enjoyment and skill development of young kids. So think about it, or for youth, I guess. So Think about it kind of like an add-on to the structured formal programs that were being run in schools, private and public schools, in the form of small groups, coaches, and again, enjoyment and development really were its primary focus when it first started, and it's leaped off to something much different than that today. But that to me is really what AAU is or was, and how it came about.
Yeah. And where is it today? Because I don't think it is quite, or maybe it is in a different form. Is it evolving? What's your thoughts on it?
So it's like most things in life, there is always the exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, from my perspective, there's not enough folks that hold true to the fun and development side of what AAU used to stand for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's evolved, if that's the right word, into something that I think has become, in many words, unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I believe AAU today is focused more around the folks that benefit most from AAU.
Yeah.
Again, not the exceptions. There's some that are out there, and I'm glad to talk about those. But the rule, unfortunately, is the folks that benefit most from those AAU programs are the folks that are receiving the checks from the kids and the parents, I should say. And I think that's just made the whole AAU experience for me as a coach that is really, really strong around making sure that kids build the team structure and loyalty and commitment and skill. It's made it very challenging for me.
Mm. And why is that?
Well, what
is the challenge that you're seeing?
When you bring kids out of a structured environment where they're focusing on skill, mm-hmm. and they're focusing on working in their team environment, and they're focused on fundamental stuff, really, because that's what it's all about. We want to teach the fundamentals of the game, and then later on in life, as they kind of piggyback fundamental on fundamental, it gets to a crescendo down the road where the kids demonstrate all these years of fundamental preparation and skill development, and hopefully builds into this wonderful event for them when they get older to the high school level where they can show this off, make a competitive team and whatnot.
Yeah.
And where I think it's gone astray, and this isn't speculation, I actually saw this. One of the parents of a kid I coach or coached, I won't say whether it's coach or coached, actually sent me a video of one of the program directors at a local, very prominent, very good coach, I should say, and a very well-recognized AAU program, where the coach is actually on video talking to the parents, and the words that were spoken were, and I quote, "We're not going to develop your kids here. We don't care about skill development here. What we care about is putting the best competitive team on the floor as possible and getting kids scholarships. That's all we care about. If you want skill development, go do it somewhere else. We're not going to do it while you're with us." And I got to tell you, that's always bothered me. Mm. It's bothered me. Yeah. Bill, again, just being very candid with you.
Yeah.
What happens is I've had some kids fortunate enough to play on these great teams and in these programs, and they go away and they spend the spring and the summer spending a lot of money flying to these showcase tournaments, and they come back to me in the summer and they come back to me in the winter for the season. They're not any better than they were when they left. Yes, they get to play around some better competition in some cases, but they're not any better. And we have to reteach them. We have to reteach them things that they don't use in the competitive AAU world, like fundamental kind of things. And that I just don't know the benefit. If there's as many benefits as there are what I think are detriments to what we call the AAU. Forget about what I say. Forget about me. I'm just some guy that coaches high school basketball. What do I know? But guys like Kobe Bryant, who said AAU is one of the worst things that could ever happen to youth sports, agree. Yeah. Steve Kerr knows more about basketball than 50 coaches will ever know.
Yeah.
his comments have been made very public lately about how AAU has really hurt the sport. Baron Davis, he had a great AAU stint. He says AAU basketball has really, really ruined basketball for kids for lots of myriad of reasons. So I want to be sure I say this. There are a few programs out there that do a phenomenal job of skill development and competitive play. It's the programs that don't care about the skill development, that just want to put a winning team and get sponsorship money and tell the kids, hey, we'll give you a great new pair of shoes and a really cool backpack. You come with us. And they fly all over the country for these showcases. And they come back, and I have to tell you, my experience is, and they haven't been any better.
There's a lot to unpack there, John, and I appreciate you sharing your opinion on that because it is definitely broken. And I've seen it where I've had an AAU coach who came up to me after we just got our butts kicked by him, saying he put his teams in a lower division so they could win that division. So then they could turn around and say to the parents, we just were undefeated, won this division, and now it's time for you to pay. Yeah. Right? And I'm like, one, if you're going to do that, don't tell me that after you just, whipped up on us because you're in the wrong division and we're in the right division. But then that's just, to me, that's just the attitude, generally speaking. Like you said, there's great programs out there. But then the other thing is, I witnessed it myself. It's really sexy and exciting to put to get the best of the best on your team and go and win, right? Yeah. And then get the contracts and the sponsorships and the shoes. And oh my gosh, that's really exciting. But you have to, as a coach, you have to remember, why are you coaching? If the reason you're coaching is for that, okay, go ahead and do that. But for me, and I know a lot of coaches, we're in it for the kids. And, kids need new shoes. Well, no, they actually need other things that, we talked about culture, in a previous podcast. They need a sense of belonging. They need to build their confidence. There's lots of other things that they need, and they can learn through the game of basketball. That's not the winning and everything else and the pretty shoes and the backpacks and everything that goes along with it. And I have seen firsthand where kids who have gone the AAU route, games, traveling around the United States, just quit the game. Where the kids that, just personally speaking, I have coached, I have trained, are filling the rosters now at the high school level. And our starters and are playing because we took the time at the youth level to do the skill development. Did we win a lot? Nope, didn't win a lot. But man, they're winning now because they have that great foundation built. Yeah.
I would say that there's a place. I mean, you look at the EYBL circuit, right? Invitation only. Best is kind of what that was all built upon. You attract the finest, you play against the finest, you go to these tournaments. And, most of the kids, I think, that get on these best of the best EYBL teams, I think are already on somebody's radar. I think they're already on somebody's radar. But if you do the math, and there's 170 D1 programs or something?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
170 something D1 programs. And I'm just talking, I don't know the numbers for the WNBA. I don't know what their total draft pool is, but I think the NBA drafts about 60 some people a year, players a year. I should have the WNBA numbers. I'm embarrassed I don't. But you can do the math, right? You understand you're living this story that says, and check me on this if you think I'm wrong. Look at these programs and how they articulate. We have players that have 168 or 768 scholarships. We have 122 players playing D1. I mean, that's what they're selling, right?
Right.
They're selling. Yeah. Get on. and we're going to get you in front of colleges. We're going to get you a scholarship. Okay, they can't say we're going to give you one, but that's what they're implying.
Right.
Then what about all the other AAU teams? What about all those other programs that aren't the best of the best of the best? What are you teaching down there? These kids aren't loyal to the programs. I mean, parents are jumping, kids and parents are jumping teams all the time.
Yeah.
You've got kids flying in from other states. I have a very good friend who lives in Texas. He flies his daughter into California to play on some of these AAU teams, right? And the girls from the local AAU teams are going, Susie from Iowa's here, and so is Janet from Texas. What about me? This is in my backyard. So, where's the loyalty that's there for all these other kids? Are they going back to their home programs, which is where they spend the magnitude of their time? Yeah. Are they going back to those home programs better prepared to succeed individually and for their team? I would make the case in more cases no than yes. And that's a challenge for coaches like you and I that lose these kids for the AAU programs to coaches aren't one of the strong skill development coaches, right? Yeah. And those talked about. And then you've got a self-correction process. We got to bring it back in. We got to get you into shape. We've got to teach you it again. We've got to get you back into our system. It takes time. It's hard.
And talk about, I think one of the things that always comes up, from parents and kids, and because the kids are, taught this, games. We got to get more games in. And I was talking to a parent the other day, and she said, how many times my daughter shot the ball in her game? 6 times. I'm like, yeah. And then just imagine taking an hour, how many shots could she get up in an hour on her own working skills and drills? Right. Yeah. So I'm always torn on this game versus practice. What is the ratio? And I know a lot of coaches do that. They struggle with this as well. Games serve a purpose, practices serve a purpose, or just working out or every training, whatever it is, right? Enlighten us. Like, what is this balance that we should strike?
I have this discussion with parents all the time when we talk about what does the spring and summer look like.
Yeah.
For kids that we'll consider to be elite level and not elite level. And I always err on the side of making sure that they get stronger and making sure that their fundamental skill level continues to raise. We talk about 1% better every day. If you're in the gym, 1% better than the day before, or you haven't made any progress. You're either getting better or you're getting worse, one of the two, right?
Yeah.
So, I believe that if you align yourself with the right program and they are selective in when they play and how they play, and it's a good mix of the two, I believe that it's a win-win. I don't believe that these kids that play 3 games on Saturday and then jump over to another team and play 3 games on Sunday or 2 games on Sunday, I believe there's a point where they get to be 14, 15, 16 years old, and their bodies are going, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this, and injuries occur, and, you have a mental fatigue and a physical fatigue. And but I do believe, and I do support and understand, you have to get play. You have to play. You can't just dribble, and you can't just shoot. You have to play.
Yep.
So I'm really, really careful about being direct and honest. Again, my humble opinion, for whatever it's worth, with parents about what's the benefit and trade-off between program A, program B, program C, program D, from what I know. And I think I do know from a local perspective, I think I do know enough about the 4 or 5 leading programs in this area. And of those 4 or 5, there's really 1 or 2 that I feel comfortable saying that's where you should end up.
Mm-hmm. Well, off air, we'll talk about who that is. I'm curious.
Yes.
So I get, again, one thing we hadn't mentioned is I started, and maybe this is just me, and I get so much more enjoyment out of it. And I'll tell you why. Open gyms. And I open it up certain times, Sunday nights, whatever it is. I'm doing one now for seventh and eighth graders in my community, and they just play. They just play. We shoot for what team you're on, and sometimes they're fair and sometimes they're not. And whoever makes their basket, right, are the first five that are in. But I'll tell you what, there's no coaching other than, once in a while I'll say, hey, do this, do that. There's no game strategy. I'm not saying, I just said keep it simple. All, pass, cut, fill, right? That's all you're going to do is pass, cut, fill. Maybe screen on, set some screens. And the point of all is let them figure it out on their own. And they're just playing. There's no refs. They're calling their own fouls. Where does that come into the mix? And that's question number one. Question number two is, I'm going to assume you and I are about the same age. That's what we did. We didn't have the organized basketball, or it wasn't as big as it was now, or maybe didn't have access to it. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. We just played.
Yeah.
Every day, 5 days a week for hours.
Yeah. You'd sneak into the local church and you'd play in their cafeteria gym or whatever you find.
Wherever, whenever. Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest and on the East Coast where, it snowed from November until April.
Right.
So if you couldn't get into the high school gym, you're sneaking into the church or the local elementary school cafeteria. I'm with you. So we do open gyms. I came on SRV. I was very, very fortunate to have an exceptional man as the athletic director. His name is John Rayner, and you've been around basketball for a while. You may know Mr. Rayner.
Yeah.
Just an exceptional person, and really cared about basketball and the kids. But John made sure you knew the rules, and he articulated to me very clearly the rules of our open gym. And I've always tried to follow those to the best of my ability. So we do open gyms a little bit different than some of the schools that I either have been told about or I've gone and watched their open. We do it a little bit differently. So we usually do a 2-hour time window. And the first hour is dedicated to skill development. So the kids, and again, I'm not coaching. I don't offer any type of coaching. We don't do any coaching. The most we'll do is rebound, right?
Yeah.
First hour, so let's just say it's 4 to 6. And 4 to 5 is all skill development. We do that because that allows kids from the community to come in that can't play with some of the older girls, let's just say, because they're physically not capable of it. Yeah. It also allows girls that say they're on our freshman team or want to be on our freshman team that might not have the skill or ability to play with the varsity age to varsity level girls.
Yeah.
They can still come in and play their game. Whereas, like you mentioned, if you just do a lot of play, those girls generally get, I don't want to say lose interest, but they generally get they don't want to get out there and be overwhelmed, right? They want to be able to compete against someone at or near their skill level. So skill stuff allows them to work on their game for an hour. And if they want to stick around and play, and we have enough, we'll break it out into 2 groups. So we'll have kind of like an advanced group and kind of like an intermediate group. And that allows everybody to enjoy the open gym to the best of their ability. But like you, I love open gyms. I'd have an open gym every night, Bill, if my school would let me.
Yeah. It's funny. Last week, the last 2 weekends we've had it. And I mean, I act like a 16-year-old boy because I'm cheering, I'm jumping around, I'm, like, oh my gosh, he just hit that deep 3, and they're doing things that they normally probably wouldn't do in the game because they don't want to lose the game, or they don't want the coach to pull them out, or or the pressure of being embarrassed because they tried this new crossover that they're doing or working on, and it's so magical. I just love seeing and watching them play, and I think most importantly, laughing, and having fun with it. So
great. That's such a great point. I it sometimes goes overlooked, but the joy that you see them have amongst themselves and with their friends and strangers, people they don't really know that well, to see that joy, you bring that up, and it really resonates with me. It's something that maybe I don't appreciate as much as I should, but that's very rewarding for me too. I love seeing that.
Yeah. Well, let's get back on the AAU thing. So, AAU started out with the best intentions. It's kind of gone to, more of a business now. It is a business, right? Coaches trying to grab the best, or teams trying to grab the best players so they can win and get the sponsorship, get dollars, blah, right? How do we change it? What, and if you had let me ask it this way. If you had a magic wand and poof, there's something that exists across the world, or maybe just the United States, because I think, and I'd love to get my European friends on here to talk about basketball there, because it is different. Maybe I'll do that too. So if you're listening, write in, let me know if you want to talk about your equivalent to your AAU programs there. But how do we change it, or what needs to change? Again, magic wand situation here, John.
Yeah. My magic wand would have to have an awful lot of multiple attempts in it, because I think as soon as I would tell you I'd want to do this, I think I'd probably go, but I also would want to do this. I'd also, first of all, quality of coaching is critical, right? The quality of you've got to have the best coaches or good coaches in there that care about the things that you find are important. What I find important are skill development, relationships, camaraderie, confidence building, those type of life lessons, teaching life lessons, right? We're constantly trying to tell them that sports is a metaphor for life, and what happens out there. And if we can get it right here for you, it's a great stepping stone for what goes out. So to me, that's kind of criteria number one. How do you control that? I don't know. As a parent, I just would make sure that I was very clear on the style and quality of the coach that has my kids' AAU time and my money.
Well, and I think, a little self-promotion here. That's what we're trying to do at Coaching Youth Hoops, with the Facebook group, now with our system that we create in the playbooks, and this podcast. It's having speakers on like you, who, it takes a little bit, right? It's a drip of water. It's 1% better every time, right? If a coach who's kind of, or a new coach that's hearing this, or an old coach, and says, you know what, John is right. That's, we should do more of X, and we should do more drills and skills building versus the games. And, games are important, as we have said, but are they as important as leveling up the kids when they're young and getting the skills that they need?
Yeah.
And what is this all for is the other question. Why do we have the Coaching Youth Hoops podcast and Facebook group? Why are you and I talking? Why do we even care? Like, what is the, you look down your bench, and your team might be a little bit different. You are, Division I, you have a great program, great culture, great community of girls coming in, but you look down your bench and you look at player number, 12 and 11. Don't see the court as often. They're there grinding every day with everybody else. What do we, what is it? What's in it for them? And I think we can't lose sight of that.
Bill, that is you read my notes, I think. Somehow you got into my notes and saw them, because we had what I thought was one of the most gratifying and rewarding moments of my coaching career towards the end of this season.
Yeah.
And, without boring your listeners, we had a very good season. We played in the highest division in the state against some of the best teams. And, we were a razor's edge away from, making it all the way to the big game. So we were right there with a group of girls that, by the words of one of the big sports writers in town, said that we graduated almost everybody and have no pool of talent in our area. So to have that success this year was really cool. But to get back to your point, the most rewarding and gratifying things that happened in my coaching career was number 11 and number 12 that you just talked about. So those are the girls at the end of the bench, right? Those are the girls that don't see much play time. But just before we got done with the season, we met with the kids and said, this is crunch time. This is critical. This is where it's all worth. We need everybody bought in, everybody pulling on the rope the same way, everybody supporting everybody. That number 11 and number 12 girl, both came to the group and both came to the conversation and said, we are going to be as good as we can be in practice. Whether we make it on the floor or not for a game, we're going to be as good as we can be in practice so that everybody else gets better because we're better. And guess what? That we'll say 10, 11, 12 on the team. 10, 11. They spent the next 2 to 3 weeks. They were killing it. They'd show up for practice with this unbelievably good attitude. They always did, but they take it at the top 5, if you will. They work so hard. They're the reason why I can comfortably say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 got so much better in the playoffs and the playoff season is because 12, 11, and 10 said, we're going to make a difference. If we're not going to play during the game, watch what we do in practice. And they did. And it was so rewarding and so obvious.
That, we talk about, I don't know if it was this one or the previous podcast, we talk about what's winning. Right there, you just summed it up. That's a win. And whatever happened moving forward, you won the state championship or not, it doesn't matter, right? That is a win because those girls will remember that. They will remember that for the rest of their life, and that will serve them so well for the rest of their life, period. Right. Yeah. And that's a testament to you, Coach, and the culture that you created. But let's bring this back now and kind of in summary of give me, because there's lots of parents out there, there's lots of coaches right now, they're thinking, they're contemplating what we should do, AAU or not, competitive. It doesn't even have, there's not everybody belongs to AAU, but they belong to some competitive, program. Give me, let's maybe focus in on, maybe let's do this. Let's break it into chunks. I think there's a huge difference. I had a coach, what offense should I run for my first and second grade team? Right? I'm like, first off, no offense, because you're going to pull your hair out trying to even implement any offense. But, and I'm kind of a little bit all over this place. I just had another thought, which just makes me so just angry. I'll call it angry about AAU programs. There should be at the young youth level, because I hear this story over and over and over again. I'm a third grade coach. How do I break a press? I'm like, why are we pressing? Why are we pressing in third grade and even fourth grade? Maybe at those elite levels, but are you really that elite in third grade? Yeah, you might stand out a little bit more. But come on, stop with that craziness of why, but why they're pressing, right? The other team's pressing because they want to win. And then, right. But anyway, I just got on a tangent there, Coach. I'm sorry, but that's one example of where AAU gets it wrong, in my opinion.
I agree. And how many college and pro teams do you see pressing during a game? Right? I'm with you. I'm also you're going to get hate mail on this one. But I'm also the anti-zone coach.
It's always a big topic on the Facebook group.
I don't believe in youth sports that we should be using zone as a common form of defense. I believe we teach man-to-man principles. Yeah. I believe that once in a while you can throw in a zone. No problem. That's in a normal game. We'll show a zone once in a while just to mix it up. I'm okay with that. But we teach our kids best by the man-to-man principles. But I believe if we were to kind of bring this all back in and say, how do we create a vision for our child, for our children, for our players that meets the goals of what we've established. And if the goals are to develop them, to get them ready for the next level, whatever that next level would be, I'd be very judicious. I'd be very deliberate in making sure I understand what the philosophy of the program is. I understand what the coaches' strengths are and how much time they'll be spending on the development part versus the showcase and the airplanes and the 3-hour drives and all that. I'd be very, very sure that I'm getting out of the program exactly what I need, rather than the kids feeling of I'm aligned with program A, so therefore I'm in the right click group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's break that even down a little bit further. So let's just be realistic. Third through fifth. Okay. Do I do AAU or not? And does what you just said change any? And should I be? Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Do I do AAU or not? 3rd to 5th grade. Is there an alternative to the AAU, or are the games, the organized games, limited to AAU sphere during that time where you say you're not in your CYO program or you're not in summer?
It's outside of the normal basketball season, so spring through summer, right?
Yeah. I think what I would do is if I was to start John's AAU program tomorrow, what I would tell parents is I'm going to spend your money on gym time to train your kids, to develop kids. And then we'll be selective on what tournaments or play we go to do. I would contact other coaches and ask them if we could do one-off kind of games where we could not just play a game, but also have a kind of a coaching opportunity during the game where on occasion we're able to stop it and kind of teach going along, and then let them play a quarter and then stop and teach. That's where I think I would say yes, AAU, if you could be selective as to making sure that you're not every Sunday for 6 weeks or every other Sunday for 6 weeks driving 3 hours, 2 hours to play 2 games and then driving back to play a Sunday game. But you're only working out 2 times a week in a practice, which many of these kids don't even attend. So they show up on the week games. And they really don't know what's going on, right? It's just run up and down, press if you can, transition basketball. So I don't think I've answered your question, but I would say yes, if it's the right program that fills the goals that you've established for whatever your child is looking to do.
And then what about as we get older? So now we're talking 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Does the competition, and again, assuming your kid is a decent player, maybe not the best, not the worst, somewhere in between, which is the mass majority. There's only a handful of those elite kids, and then everybody else is, mediocre to, they can't dribble that well, right? So let's talk about the masses. What do I do? 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. How should I think about going into the spring and summer program if I'm a parent or if I'm a coach?
Right. And the basketball player that you were talking about is somebody that has aspirations to playing at a higher level, or just somebody that wants
they want to make their high school team, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that clarifies that to me, that's a very simple answer. I would spend that money on skill development with a really great trainer, with a complementary on your own type program that the trainer would probably develop. And then I would look for games through local club teams, or I would look to join a local club team, whether it be AAU or something else, where I could play a minimal amount of games to keep me fresh and keep me competing against hopefully other kids that want to play high school basketball, which, we both know that's not always what you get.
Right.
I think I would play in that realm rather than look to join the, I guess, quote unquote, the best program.
Right.
And pay that kind of funding to skip over the skill stuff and work on the tournament stuff. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And, and I think, is it okay to go, say you're in a club, your focus is a lot on skills and they win, let's say they have 10 games in a season, they win 3. So you're 3-10, but they focus a lot on skills. How do you communicate if you're the coach of that organization? How do you communicate that to the parents, right? Because that happens a lot where you might not win a lot if you focus a lot on the skills. Yeah, as in coaching, as long as you have now, is how to win a game if you really need to win a game, right? At that level, at that youth level, right? You press, you zone, whatever, But so anyway, you hear my point.
Yeah, that comes down to a conversation we had, I think, earlier about the lack of loyalty in the program, both from the coaches and from the players. And if I have to communicate to Mrs. Jones that we only won 3 out of 8 of our games this month, but Stephen has become significantly better at post play, because that's what we have as a priority for him. Post play, his footwork and his post play are significantly better during that month or 2 months. If I have to have that conversation, I think that Stephen's not in the right place. And I failed on communicating to Stephen's parents that this is what success looks like for me, for Stephen, and for the program, and that is to make them better basketball players, because you told me that you wanted Stephen to play high school basketball. Well, these are the things that we'll need to do to get Stephen ready to play high school basketball. Yeah. And that doesn't mean beating Bill and Ted's AAU program in a showcase in Chicago. That's not part of the equation.
And that's a really good point, Coach. One of the I have this particular drill, because if a parent came to me and said Johnny wants to play in school or in high school, or maybe he's already playing in high school, but he's on the team, but he's not getting much playing time. And, I'll do an assessment, look at where his skills are. And, a lot of times it comes down to, footwork, shooting, a few, fine tuning a few things. But, I have the most boring drill in the world, but it's probably in 10 years of coaching is probably the most effective drill that I have seen work for shooting and improving your shooting percentage. Right. But it's boring, but it works. It's high. It's really effective. My kids who are coming out of the program are shooting at a very high level. I say that because the skill work, quote unquote, is the boring work, or it's the tedious work. It's the, non-flashy, whatever you want to call it. It's the non-flashy work that shows up on the court, but you got to put the work in it to get to that point. And I think we all just have to take a time out and say, you got to put time in if you want to see the results on the court. If you want to be just a good high school player. You don't have to be just to be a good high school player.
Do you know what the single greatest drill that I've ever used, and I use it from when I coach third grade kids in camps, or, we have a couple girls on our team that were first and second team All-State this year, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I use the same drill in our varsity practices as I use for the third grade camps. Yeah. And it's the simplest drill in the world. And to me, it's the most effective fundamental drill that I've ever taught. And I use it all the time. Mm-hmm. And that is 2 basketballs, start at the second hash. Well, if they're young, or you start back at the elbow if they're older. 2 basketballs, no dribble, right-handed underhand layups, 2 steps only, right side, left side, right side. And it not only tells you everything you need to know about where they currently are in their,
fascinating,
but it reminds these kids of the fundamental stuff. Like as the older kids get better at that drill, we move them out to the 3-point line, and they get 2 steps only, just like they would in a game. And what that teaches them, Bill, is that when they're in a situation where they don't have to think. Anytime they're in that 3-point line as they're getting older again, they know that they've just proven it over and over. I can make it from the 3-point line to the basket in 2 steps without ever putting the ball on the floor.
Yep. And so you said you have 2 balls, so is one tucked, and then you have the
one the other arm, so it prevents you from bringing that offhand to the ball, because that's what your first instinct is to bring that ball to the center body,
right? Exactly.
And then that's when the ball gets stolen from you. So we teach them to keep the offhand ball, the ball with the hand, the ball in the hand, the shooting hand, out away from the body, and we scoop as we go to the basket, keeping it away from the defender. That's the most effective drill. It's the simplest in the world, but it tells me everything I need to know about the current status of the kid, or the potential of the kid, or whether the kid gets it or not as they're older.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love simple drills like that, and that's what I was saying. That was my point too. What I was, the simple works, and it doesn't have to be complicated. And so we went from AAU to talking about our simple drills, which I absolutely love. And this is the nature of this particular podcast. We just get on tangents as coaches. We could probably sit on the phone for the next 3 hours, just doing one podcast after another right here. But I think we're going to lose listenership. They probably won't. They'll probably turn us off. But who cares? It's just for us, right? John, again, I thank you for your time. This has been just a wealth of knowledge that you shared with coaches around the world. I have to say, keep up the work that you're doing. It's absolutely amazing what you've created at your high school. If you need to train coaches, because we need more of you in this sport. And I truly believe, I truly mean that. As Coach Alak always used to say to me, keep up the good work. There's only a few of us left. So I'm going to say that back to you. Keep up the good work. I know your son is coaching. Make sure he's carrying that torch forward in every coach you touch. So,
thank you.
And we're going to have you back on. So at some point in the future. So let's keep in touch. And again, appreciate your time. And any final word on AAU or special drills? Go ahead.
Yes, I will leave you with this. And I appreciate the kind words. And it has been one of the most rewarding and joyful things that I've ever done. And that is coaching youth basketball. And I will tell you that my legacy, the fingerprints that I leave after I'm gone, are very, very important to me. Very important to me. I always, in everything I do in life, I always want to know that I left it better than the way I found it.
Yeah.
And whether it's the fence in my backyard or basketball. But I'll tell you just quickly, this weekend I did something that I never do, ever in the spring season. I went to an AAU basketball game. I never do it because once the season ends, I take the spring off, and I don't like some of the AAU stuff that I see. So I never go, but I went this day because my son was coaching an AAU team. And now Joe's used to coaching, like you said. I think Joe's win-loss record as an assistant coach at SRV is something like 148 and 30. Okay, so he's not used to losing.
Yeah,
right. No, it's higher than that. It's much higher than that, actually. So, anyways, he's coaching a team of 7th and 8th graders that I would say are those kids we've talked a lot. Youth kids say we've talked a lot about that aspire to be better, that one day make a high school team. And they played a very good team this weekend, and they got beat, but they competed. And after the game, I said to Joe, what'd you think? And he said, it's a tough transition for me, Dad, to go from, the level that we have to trying to make a difference. And some of these girls, are really struggle with understanding the discipline and the structure. But he says, if I can just make a difference in one of their lives, if I just make them see that they can do more than they think they can, it makes all of this worthwhile. And I kind of got a tear in my eye and said, I did it. Yeah. I won.
Yeah. You won. Yeah.
So we want to pass that on to as many as we can. And Joe's the next generation of that. He loves the coach. And so I thank you for the kind words. And that's really what it's all about to me, is to pass on what others have been kind enough to give to me.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Until next time, have a great off season, and good luck to you next year.
Thank you so much, Bill. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.